All right. Sure, we'll have more good discussions today because it's all about karma. All right. Let's start with our opening prayers. Take refuge, generating bodhicitta, once in English, 2 times in the sing-along version. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by listening to teachings and the other paramitas, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chedang sogi chognam la, jangchu bardu dagni kyatsu ichi, dagi jinso dipe sonam ki. Drola penchir sangye druparso. Sangye tedang sogi chognam la. Jangchu bardu dagni gyatsu chi. Dagni jinso dibe sonam ki. Drola penchir sangye druparso. And bring to mind Shenrezi, with the four hands, the two holding the jewel of Buddha nature, and between the immeasurables of love and compassion, and then the one with the mala transmitting immeasurable joy, that all beings be inseparable from the happiness that's completely free from suffering. And then the other hand is holding the lotus, which represents our all sentient beings' ability to arise out of all of our cognitive and afflictive obscurations and blossom into full enlightenment. So as we say these four immeasurables, this is what Chenrezi embodies. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And once we get into, after today's class, we're going into some heavy duty stuff about emptiness. Nagarjuna really delves into emptiness after this business with karma. And so we'll be adding Manjushri, adding the Omarakatsanadi mantra to our opening prayers once we get into that section. And I think we're going to be on that for a few months. I've just looked ahead, and it's very, very it's some of the best writing actually I've seen. This particular Kensur Tekchon, some of the best writing I've seen on emptiness, aside from Genlam Rinpa. And so he has a different way of looking at it. So I think it will be could be very, very beneficial for us. I'm very hopeful about it. So let's move on to the 7-limb prayer. And if any of you have done this merit field visualization of the 7-limb prayer, I made an audio just earlier this week, and I've done it several times, and I'm going, yeah, this is good. I need to do this, because what we need to do is regularly, habitually imprint these positive qualities. It's not enough to just go, it's a good idea. We actually have to do it. And so this is the way.
In the recording, your audio, how you've gone deeper into the R's, with the regret, the remedy, there was
regret, reliance, remedy,
resolve. And resolve, yeah. How you go into the different phases, mind, body, and speech, the 3 different, like that. I do that historically, but not that deep. I just say mind, body, and speech historically.
Right.
But now it goes into those deeper levels.
It does,
so
yeah.
I appreciated that. I was like, oh wow, yeah, I need to do this better.
It's this particular practice, 7-limb, is something I've focused on for years and years and years. And I would say it's probably it's aside from the tantric practice that we were given, it is the main thing I've been focusing on. And so finally, I think I was able to get it down into it's only about like 35 minutes.
Right, it's really
Into
good.
a format that, you can go through quickly, but is potent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it on your website?
It's now on every email I'm sending out. It's on the website. Yeah. So here, if you've done that, just sort of visualize quickly what we go through. Here's the 7-limb prayer. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merits of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until samsara ends and turn the wheel of dharma for sentient beings. I dedicate the merit created by myself and others to the great enlightenment. And then we make the mandala offering. Sadipaki Jochim Meto Tramri Rablinji Nidegyevadi Sangye Jindu Videruagi Drokunam Dachinda Chepasho Idam Guru Radha Mandala Yeyatayam. So I put together a little bit business about creating our future self. Because Kavita and I have been talking a lot about this, and it's something that we are constantly doing moment by moment, whether we like it or not, whether it's positive or not positive. We are continually moment by moment creating our future self. So I put some thoughts down about this. The way we create our future self is through a threefold process, which involves our habitual ways of acting with our body, our habitual ways of how we use our speech, and our habitual patterns of thinking. So it's impossible for us not to be continually creating our future self, because whether we like it or not, we have habitual ways of thinking, speaking, and acting. And those habits are going to be moment by moment generating how we're creating ourselves, basically. So in that particular sense, we don't have any choice in the matter. We are always creating a future self. There is no choice about that. So what we need to do is decide how we're going to do, how we're going to create it. So according to the Buddha, consciousness is that which knows and is aware. This is Venerable Rabina put it that way frequently. That which knows and is aware. That's a very concise way of describing what consciousness is. It is not created, and it is without a beginning or end. That's according to the Buddha. It is the essential condition or state which enables experiential awareness to exist within the universe. And for all we know, the universe has infinite parallel universes along with it. So what we're talking about is if the universe is experienced at all, it's through consciousness. Consciousness is what you could say is an essential part of any universal system. Otherwise, if it's not experienced, what's the point? Really, it doesn't even make sense without consciousness. So that's consciousness. Consciousness at its simplest is awareness of internal and external existence. That comes directly from a definition in Wikipedia that I found, but it's true. consciousness at its simplest is awareness of internal existence, what's going on in our the consciousness that's within our body, our sense consciousness in our body, but also our mental consciousness, awareness of what's going inside. We all have this experience, an internal awareness, and we have then an external awareness of what's out there. And so at its simplest, you could say consciousness is that. When embodied in a physical life form such as a human being, consciousness functions in a number of ways simultaneously. In humans, the eye, ear, nose, taste, touch, and mental sense consciousnesses. So there are 6 sense consciousnesses that humans have: eye, ear, and nose, taste, touch, and mental. Those all, if they're properly functioning, they all occur in conjunction with one another to create an entire experience of being. So what we have going on, we don't think of it this way, we just think of this is just the way it is, but we have all these 6 kinds of consciousnesses functioning simultaneously to create what we just think is this unified a sense of being, what is. Hi, good to see you guys. Welcome. So that's something to think about there. So the question for us to ask ourselves is, since we're going to have a quality of experience anyway, regardless, what kind of quality of experience do we actually want to have? That's really the question we should be asking ourselves in terms of, when we're talking about karma and how we behave and do this kind of thing. It's not, am I, a good girl or a bad boy? But what kind of experience do we want to have? What do we want to be creating for our being? And how do we go about managing our consciousness, really? Managing our consciousness, managing the propensities of our consciousness, so we can maintain a consistent experience of happiness and a positive momentum. Now, it seems so dumb to say, well, why would we want happiness and a positive momentum? But this is so clear. If you go back to Buddha Shakyamuni's first teaching that he gave at the Deer Park in Sarnath, India, the very first thing he said was, there is suffering. He acknowledged something that we all know exists. We all experience suffering, and none of us like it. It's universal. Nobody likes suffering. No. So that's quite clear. We don't want suffering. We want to have happiness and a positive momentum going on. So, but we do experience suffering. And so why is that? So the second thing the Buddha said that is, suffering has a cause. These are the 4 noble truths, quite simple. Suffering exists, it has a cause. Then he said, suffering can be ceased. And he said, there is a pathway of consciousness you can take that will lead to the complete cessation of suffering. So what we need to do then look at, well, what is the cause? What causes suffering? Does anybody have any guesses?
Well, grasping due to attachment.
And
would be my guess.
Let's keep going with that.
Yeah.
What causes the attachment?
Probably, well, ignorance, because of what you think you're grasping at, you think is something, I don't know if it's attainable or whatever it is, but you think that's the true nature of reality. So
Bingo!
So you're grasping at it because, like, that's the real thing.
That's the cause.
Yeah.
That's the cause. The cause is that we have a mistaken understanding of what existence is. We have a mistaken understanding of what existence is. And so the Buddha said that mistake basically can be undone. So he says suffering can be ceased. It can be ceased completely. But what we have to do is, and it seems like the answer should be pretty simple. Okay, well, we just exchange our mistaken view of existence for the correct view, right?
It's so easy.
It should be simple. But the problem is, we've been having this mistaken view for so long. I mean, according to the Buddhists, since beginningless time, whatever that it means, right? I mean, it's not even fathomable. But the habit we have is so ingrained to have this mistaken view. And the mistaken view, of course, is that things exist inherently. And particularly when we're talking about the self, the me, the I, and all and phenomena exist inherently the way it all kind of appears to us. It appears to us this way because of our mistaken view of existence. That's why it appears like boom, 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 all this separate stuff that exists inherently from its own side. So it's a big task that we have ahead of us in order to turn that around.
Chris, have you ever I've always been told, and this is something that's been kind of an ongoing trying to figure out, and just I haven't been able to really make any progress on it, which is, I get that very well, that the habit, the cause of the grasping is previous cause of grasping, and so it's this ongoing thing. But it's always bothered me on some level of like, what is the origin of ignorance? And this idea that, well, ignorance has no beginning, but it does have an end. I struggle with that, because it's like, well, why? That sort of implies that if we have Buddha nature, why did we not stay in Buddha nature? Or why did it, like, what? It seems to me that fundamental ignorance needs to have a cause, but I don't know if you've ever bumped up against that, but that's.
Oh, you've bumped up against it.
But
There's
it eats at me
there's
sometimes.
something that I wanna say related to your
Uh-huh.
mention of Buddha nature. Because I know that I have been misconceiving what that is. And have recently read it again and read it again and read it again. And so it helps, I think it will help with the question, in the sense that Buddha nature, when that term is used, we concretize it and think it's a thing that's living in us.
Yeah.
When Buddha nature is the words they use to describe the dependent arising, anything's possible nature of everything, so including our consciousness. So when they say Buddha nature, when the term Buddha nature comes up, at least in our lineage, it's not talking about a thing that's been there forever. It's talking about the mode of existence of this consciousness, awareness and knowing. It's a very flat, it's a functional reality, consciousness. And the fact that that very consciousness is impermanent, has the capacity to transform and change. That's all they're saying when they talk about Buddha nature.
But
It's not a thing.
right,
so
but
from
doesn't
that-
that mean that state of consciousness, of knowing and awareness in the universe
And changeability.
and changeability had to at some point become ignorant?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Been
I
always
understand,
ignorant, but has the
because
ability to
what is
change.
ignorance? Okay, so then you
Yeah.
have to ask the question, what is ignorance?
Right,
Here you have this consciousness, its function is clarity and awareness.
right.
And His Holiness puts it, the function of consciousness is
To be subjective.
subjectivity, so
Yeah.
its job is to apprehend whatever.
Right,
The quality of the consciousness itself is empty, so it has the capacity to transform. I'm gonna put it simplistically,
Yeah.
one way or the other.
right.
So. Of course, it's difficult to get our head around, but that does not necessarily mean that it ever was or wasn't one way or the other. This is the problem with beginningless time,
Yeah.
or the challenge for us
Yeah.
in the sense of beginningless time. So you have to then add another element to this, which is the realm within which we find ourselves. Okay, break out of the human realm and the universe that you know, and just bring a pure consciousness that has the capacity to transform because it's impermanent and not self-creating, right? Okay, now, somewhere out there are consciousnesses that have not been contaminated by ignorance, but you are in a realm, the you that we're talking about here are in a realm that necessarily has fallen into a state of ignorance. That's why you're here asking this question.
Right.
I can't say what you were or weren't, you know, what we all were before.
Right.
So, assuming the neutrality of consciousness, something has habituated, has a habitual pattern, has associated, you have associated your consciousness with a habitual pattern that gets you into a state of ignorance. It does not necessarily mean that perhaps you were pure and knowing, but, and this is one of the simplistic ways they put it, the consciousness became aware of itself. That awareness of itself triggered
The grasping.
me.
Right.
And then from that flows, but you almost have to take yourself out of this
Right.
realm
Yeah, that
to
kind
get
of-
at your question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot to take on.
I'll let it go.
I know.
It's a big one.
It is a big one.
It is a very
You
big
have to
one,
get
it's the
past
question
the-
everybody asks.
You have to get
yeah.
past the reality that we're so familiar with and the way of thinking of it, you know, it's just, you have to get past it, it's not easy.
Well, my mind is going to, it's from yogic philosophy, and I don't know what Buddhism says about it, but when you're talking of consciousness, I think, and correct me if this is really mistaken, but consciousness in and of itself is pure. It's not ignorant, it's infinite field of whatever, the possibility. And as consciousness takes form, it's like evolution. It takes form in matter, which is the predicament that we're in because we have a brain that functions a certain way that automatically is dualistic. Maybe we can't grasp of the connectedness. So it's like consciousness itself is not in error. It's the form that we're in's capacity to understand consciousness, and as we grow, is that, am I off base?
Here's the missing link.
Okay.
Imagine in a primordial state, you have this awareness that I exist. Because of that self-awareness, a self-cherishing, it arises in a subtle way with that. And over eons leads you from, let's say, an untethered, free-form, non-physical. But your self-cherishing is what leads you to the physicality. That's the missing piece in your thing, is that
And it's-
your habituation led you to the physicality. So the physicality isn't doing it to you. You are grasping at other sensory pleasures and
God.
realms we don't even know, but eventually leads you to this type of sense faculties
But isn't-
with these kinds of sense pleasures. And yes, but you got yourself into the physical realm with these issues, not
Through the
it didn't
grasping.
just-
Through
it
the
didn't-
grasp, is all of matter, I mean, it's all.
Well, I mean, according to this,
I mean,
yeah, according to the philosophy that we are, you know, we're all students of His Holiness's,
like,
you know, of His Holiness and that lineage, you know, and so from that point of view.
Yeah, they say that this, the whole realm of matter, the planet, it all evolved out of the self grasping, the
But
whole
you
samsara.
almost have to go to an imaginary state where you're just like a formless. Oh, all you are at some point is this formlessness, you become self-aware somehow. And then somehow, I mean, so in a sense, Brian, your question was,
Looking for
how did
that
you?
cause of
Yeah.
becoming self-aware.
Yeah. And
And so-
what they will say is that
There is
it's
none.
You
ego
know what?
self-grasping,
Ask
ignorant.
Bishop, you gotta ask
Yeah.
somebody else, cause.
Well-
No, but that's-
Especially not when we're still alive, cause he would have a way of
Oh.
explaining it, I know he would. Damn it.
It seems to me that And that's, I mean, as I understand consciousness and everything else, it's always existed.
Yeah.
It's beginningless. And again, beginningless only because we can't figure out anything else that makes sense. So we think that
That's
everything is
good.
beginningless because we can't really figure out anything else that explains it when we think is appropriate. But, you know, I think if I think of Buddhist Shakyamuni specifically, in the history there, you know, this guy grew up for 30 years, very privileged with all his habituations and all his accoutrements and whatnots and, you know, things he liked. And he went out into the wilderness and, you know, spent a few years cogitating over, you know, things. So he's developed a insight into what he thinks explains everything he's experienced in his existence, at least the current existence, right? And so his belief is his belief. We believe in a lot of what he believes in because we agree with.
We're following the path.
But, you know, we still are trying to use logic and figure out whether or not this is true. But if you look evolutionarily from the earliest entity that we can probably discover, and you look at our, you know, you look at the brains of the most immature organisms all the way up through us as the most mature organisms. You know, fundamentally, the primitive brain is where most of our emotional basis lies. And so you could just stochastically say, well, I kind of was existing and I randomly ran into this and I got a dopamine hit. Ooh, I like that, you know, and then I stochastic, that formed my series of habituations and just gets worse and worse, or not worse and worse.
Right, you just get deeper and deeper into it.
Right.
Yeah,
And so then you develop these habituations over many lifetimes that create to the where you are now. And the key is how do you undo those habituations?
Yeah.
And, you know, clear your consciousness back to its, I don't know, what I call it primordial state or open state or early state.
Well, actually, it's not going back. I think it's what Buddhism teaches is that you can bring your consciousness to what they would call an omniscient state, which is not what the primordial state would be.
Brian, the fault with your statement is that you said you randomly ran into something. And by using that word randomly, it implies chance and that it had nothing to do with you until you ran into it. In other words, you had no role to play. There was no karma, let's say. There was no cause and effect that involved you. It was random. I don't know if that's what you meant by the use of the word random.
Well, when I think of evolution tends to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, tends to be a random process, but the randomness becomes less and less as you evolutionarily evolve because you either adapt or you don't exist in, right? So you develop, you
Unconventional.
change, and you evolve from, you know, a very simplistic entity, whatever that is, into a much more complex entity that we exist in now over what is, you know, eons. and
Yeah, I understand that. I just think okay, so the philosophical school is known as the middle way, Prasangika middle way. That's what we're all about in this lineage. They would not accept random.
it would probably be due.
They
to
would not accept
cause and
your
effect.
explanation of evolution
Right,
as having
I
any random
understand.
factor.
There'd be some cause, yeah.
Yeah.
But the problem with this is they always go back to this beginningless time stuff.
And you don't wanna go.
Well,
And you
I
can't
think,
go there yet.
I think they're saying there's no beginning to the causes and you know, conditions.
His holiness, you know, I mean,
So that
when
kind
they talk about
of,
the Big
that
Bang.
kind of answers your question. There's no beginning.
Well, that's the thing, there is a comment they make in the monasteries that I've heard that is. Ignorance had no beginning, but it has an end, and
you go.
And that
I'm
also-
just not there yet with understanding that, because I'm like.
Well,
how can it
that
not have a
also
beginning?
could be part of an evolutionary process.
Yeah.
too.
I think
You
it
know.
was,
To
you know, when they
understand
talk about
that,
the Big Bang, you know, they all
Right.
talk about the
Yeah.
big collapse. you know,
Yeah.
so it's like
We're not
universes
there
are big
yet.
accordions and dot.
Right.
That's like.
I was,
So in a way, it's sort of, I don't know, it's sort of like it erases your consciousness of all get scrambled up and I don't.
I don't, Ajay has.
But you know-
I was listening to some of the Vedanta teachings, which is Indian, you know, a Hindu, a long time back, just like Buddhism. And they talk about all these things anyway. This is the base of every religion. And they made me, what I'm pondering now is they keep talking about the awareness that is right now. So let's say with all the questions and everything we have, I have started going back to present awareness and keep checking myself. Because she was saying, everything's happening, where is it coming from? Keep asking that, where is it? I think it's your awareness that's happening right now. So amid everything, which all the concepts and all that, we keep asking this question. And I think she was just pointing, very strongly said the awareness that you are, that is here, that is happening, is the basis of everything. Where does things happen in awareness? Where do you see in awareness? Where does the question arises in awareness? Where do you want to know in awareness? So I think that's a playing field where we can keep checking to see awareness,
That's
which
a good
probably
point.
brings you into present moment of right now.
Mhm.
Just as a test, that's my theory.
Mhm.
Just to test all the questions I have, then you bring it back to the awareness and say, where is it arising from? It's arising from within here that I think I know, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So they would keep emphasizing on the awareness.
Right,
That-
consciousness, right.
Yeah, that's
conscious
actually
awareness.
helpful because in a sense that makes
And
me
it's
think
no
this
locale,
whole idea of my
phenomenon.
wanting to know that there's a beginning. Means that my concept of time is a concept.
That's right.
It's taking me away from
Awareness.
awareness
no
in the
time.
moment.
In the
And
moment.
there isn't, right, okay.
Right.
If you're in
Okay, that helps.
awareness, there's no time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
That's a good shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That when you are in awareness purely, there is no time, because time and space exist only on our out
Yeah.
conscious
Right.
mind.
Right.
So she was really good in saying, your mind is just a byproduct of questions and questions on top of questions. Where does it come from? So the awareness really don't have time and space.
Mhm.
That's where I think we wanna go and wanna understand. So
Right,
that's just a plain field of checking yourself back in.
Mhm.
And then go do whatever, but I think we do need some kind of, ground to fall back. And then again, take ourselves up. So I'm thinking
Yeah.
awareness is really important aspects of understanding that it has no beginningless time, no space, nothing. It's just a
It is.
phenomena that exists, which we're trying to understand. Which
That's-
has no locale, nothing.
that's a very good point, Ajay, and basically awareness is part of what definition of consciousness is.
Yeah.
So why consciousness is consciousness is where we're actually doing the work. That's where all of this transformation is going to take place. And many of the meditations, like there's a meditation that I put in at the end of the refuge visualization, which is a meditation on what that mantra of Manjushri means, all the various symbols. They mean things. And it's a meditation on emptiness itself. And it can get you to a point where you were just in this present awareness, just present consciousness. And it is kind of timeless. And there is really no space or dimension to it. It is an experience. And I think that's what we're all aiming for. We're aiming for an experience that is a positive one, an experience that is not suffering, an experience that is going to lead to this happiness and this positive momentum. And that's what the Buddha's teachings are about. I would say that the Buddha never talked in terms of belief. He never said, I believe this. The Buddha came from it's much more of my findings are this. This is what I have found. It's not the same as I believe in this and I believe in that. It's basically I have found this to be so. it's my experience and it's if you were going to say there is a science of consciousness, that's, you would put Buddha into that, you would put Buddha into that category, the science of consciousness. Now, that's a very, very difficult science to engage in, because it's all subjective.
Mhm.
But it can't be denied that it exists. We all know it exists. It's just like you were saying, Ajay, you just go back to your, awareness and you go, well, that's here. That's it. This is what exists.
You can't catch it, there's no
Yeah.
locale. You're trying to understand more and more, you get confused. But I think we can keep checking ourselves in to feel that right there, which is all
Right.
about.
Yeah. And current science, neuroscientists, like I've said before, they're trying to figure this out too. It's very new, actually. The scientific study of consciousness is relatively new at the level that it's at.
Western style.
The Western style, what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, scientific Western
And
style.
It's probably very difficult for a lot of scientists to grasp, because their whole basis of knowledge of science is measuring, testing, seeing actual tangible results. And there's nothing
Not
truly tangible here, nothing you
No.
can actually necessarily measure. Because it's an experience, it's an awareness, how do you measure and weigh?
How do you capture
Awareness.
it would be your question.
Yeah.
There's no
How do
result.
you capture?
Exactly,
it?
There's no result.
exactly, and so
How do you-
Western traditional science, you have this, you measure this, it equals that. It doesn't play out that way, and so they're just like. I sometimes, I hate to say this, honey, but sometimes when Brian reads something, I literally see his scientific gears grinding, like, how is this fucking?
And of course, that's not a bad thing.
No,
No, that's a very good, logic is
Yeah.
really, really
but it
important.
certainly challenges
Yeah.
the analytical,
Mm.
scientific, Western scientific method.
But analysis is a huge part of Buddhism.
Yeah.
It is. And so,
And yesterday I was talking to Patrick. And I said this to him, and this is true for us, and this is why, Brian Herman's questions are always really thought provoking. But I said to Patrick, and he's been studying and practicing Christianity. And I said, if you can't ask the question, is this true? And be courageous enough to follow it, what do you have? What kind of a practice is that?
Yeah, Geshe
if you're not allowed to question it, yeah.
Yeah, Geshe Nima, we had an exchange in email where we were talking about logic and I was like, you need to come teach us to debate properly.
Oh, yeah.
Because he said logic is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And you have to ask these kinds of questions, and it is hard. But
Debate.
I know.
I know.
So basically, I tried that, we'll start a little debate ground.
Yeah.
We're gonna do that with some of my students in the university.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's continue. Yeah. So consciousness, it's an experience rather than it can't be measured in the same way the physical material world can be measured. However, there's been the science of consciousness in ancient Hinduism, pre-Buddhism. I mean, it's India is just this has this rich history of studying consciousness. But the way they do it is an experiential way through meditation. And that's what we are encouraged to do. That's what these visualizations and the audio guided things, it's all about getting ourselves to some kind of meditative state or a meditation that where it begins to affect how we think and the logic of it. It's very important. The logic is very, very important, and we should question it. It's good that Brian questions this. It's good that anybody questions it. We should all be questioning. So where do I go from here? Okay,
Well,
so it's far easier said than done to find a solution to this problem. Far easier said than done because we've been so enmeshed, I would say, enmeshed in this particular, what you would call samsaric cyclic existence, where we are these embodied beings and everything seems to exist has a independent self-existence to it.
So I'm sorry to interrupt again, Christine, but if I remember where you were when we started this conversation was kind of how our habituations occur that lead us to this samsaric existence.
Right. And it was grasping, it's an ego self-grasping, it's what Kavita said, grasping at me, I and me.
Right,
That
but where
leads
does
to-
that start? Where does that begin? Is that?
Just an awareness, it's an awareness, it's a self,
Around the loop we go.
it's a self-awareness.
Somewhere in the beginning of the.
This is cyclic existence in a nutshell.
Cosmology of how this cycle of samsara started, there was this awareness of I,
Yeah.
and with that self-cherishing arose, like I, and then self-cherishing, it's self-cherishing.
Maybe a helpful way of thinking of this,
Theoretical.
Okay, I get the explanation.
maybe a helpful way for a Western mind to think of
I mean,
this.
what else do we have, but again, the point that AJ brought up is, look, here we are.
Mhm.
Well, I know, but, and yes, that's true. So as my wife keeps telling me, more than one thing can be true at the same time.
Yes, and.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, on that awareness, they said, we gotta be, of course, you all know about ego. There's this subtleness of ego that sparks and takes you to again into the merry-go-round, asking all the questions. So there's always a subtleness of ego hidden in us. And so acceptance is another, probably an answer to say, we are this, we cannot deny, and then I want to be enlightened, though you want to be, it's still an ego. So there's always a subtleness of ego that's, I think, this is all my logic, sparks out of that, the awareness that we are, and then takes us back to the question. So I think that's how I'm doing it, just gotta watch the ego, which is the very, very subtleness of ego, even like
Right.
those big people in the form of service and social work, discoveries, they all have some form of ego that may make it, not do what they want. So maybe that's probably a little bit of an answer to Brian say, where did it start from again? So we went back into the circle. So there's a subtleness of ego that's in us that takes us away from the present awareness of the conscious, which Vedanta consciousness described. Like I said, what I got is, you got to be asking, where does it come from? Which starts from your conscious awareness right now, which you try to define, then the problem starts.
Yeah.
So there's a subtleness of the ego probably is what is us jumping us off the.
That's true, and really, I mean, in terms of time, all we actually have is right now. That's it.
Yes.
The past is just a construct that we have, and we're thinking about it right now.
Right.
So we need to, I think if we take more of a view in the West, right, we have a very linear way of looking at things. And what we should do is look at a cyclic way of things.
Or zigzag, I mean, like, it.
But even within
Yeah.
within the cycle, you can have zigzags,
Exactly.
but think of it as cyclic.
Mm.
Because I mean, it's cyclic existence, we're in the middle, we see cycles all around us.
Mhm.
We see it in nature constantly, we see it in human beings constantly. It is an aspect of the way things are, the cycles. So rather than think linear, where did that start? Go back, like Ajay is saying, go right back to the present moment now. Where am I now with my consciousness? It's coming from consciousness.
Right, because whatever, even if there was a concept of where did it start, that was eons ago.
Yeah.
You're not even there.
There's
right-
no
you're
way we're gonna
only
find it.
right now,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Don't forget when it started, just be right now.
Sorry, and,
We love it.
but the concern I have, or the issue I have, is if we don't understand how something exists, it's hard to understand how to modify it, how to change it in a good way.
Right. And we're
Right?
talking about consciousness here.
I know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
no, I mean.
And it is hard. And,
even, and I would say to you, AJ, and I've asked this question here before. If, you know, the philosophy we study, the Mahayana path, and the belief that there's a solution to samsara and a solution to suffering, which has existed since beginningless time, which is a long time ago. You would think, or I would think, that more people would have adapted that and there'd be less suffering.
look how difficult it is for us to accept, and we're on the path willingly.
Yeah.
If you're not even aware that the
No,
path
but-
exists.
But this puzzles me as to why people have either not gotten exposed to the path, not understood the path, or not figured out, oh yeah, this is what they say, what Buddha says is logical, and we should follow those concepts, and we'll all be better off for it.
Well, in a very simplistic response to that, it's because ego self grasping is so much fun. You know, it's enticing, it's exciting, it's tasty, it's the ice cream float, and then you overindulge in that, and then you wanna puke, I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Why is my sarcastic, just random dopamine hit hypothesis not okay?
Well, but it is, but
Okay.
that's exactly what I'm saying, it's that
It's an
dopamine
improvement.
hit of cyclic existence, like, wow, that was fun, you know, like, oh, falling in love was fun. Not realizing that grasping of that individual and of that feeling is not the nature of reality.
But-
Like that, the roller coaster ride and the thrill in your stomach, well, it's a thrill in your stomach until you're throwing up, you know, so it's that constant excitement, thrill. Because of our ignorance and understanding reality that we're grasping at.
It's the grasping that's
It's
the
the
problem. It's
grasping
trying to
at it.
hold on to it
Exactly,
and
the
repeat
ego is
it.
like- and it's like, no, it's not-
Answer his own question, I think.
Yeah.
The fact that
Yeah, right, that'll throw 'em.
I'm thinking, with everything that's been discovered, like you were saying, there's gotta be a pattern, why not people following all this? It is already there, why we are here, because we have, decided to learn more about spiritual things and who we are, and so I think the mind part, like she was saying, grasping part, it's all there. Now it's your belief and disbelief to agree or not agree that self-grasping, ego, a lot of people don't agree with that. Now, what do I call that? Is there a faith that they don't agree and then they're not trying to get to understand this? I think it has a little bit of fate. I think we are led all to this path because of our faith and we're understanding, and it's all there.
You
You
say
can really
faith or
control
faith?
mind.
Faith, yeah.
Fate,
FAT.
yeah. So with the faith, we're here.
You mean like karma?
Yeah,
Karma.
I see,
Right?
yeah.
So that's a little bit of unknown explanation I have why we're doing this, but
Mhm.
when it comes to controlling mind and all that, it's already there. If somebody wants to study and practice, you can control your mind, I think. But we, like Tracy was saying, we are still angry and all. Why? It's all our
Yeah.
ability not to be able to go all the way into controlling our mind. But there are some people who, like those lamas and meditators, they've done it,
yeah.
control the mind. So
Yeah,
like Brian said, it's there. It just, but the grasping consciousness and all that, I don't know how.
I think it comes down to, at what point have we had enough and how much do we actually want to change? How much do we want to make a shift? And, if this term beginningless time, another way you could say it is beginningless present moments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And here we are.
That's a lot.
We are in a present moment and we constantly are.
well, and of
Yeah.
course, there's always the, I don't know what the correct term is, but the odds. Of having that precious human rebirth, you
Yeah.
have the opportunity to even begin to contemplate.
Yeah.
Am I ready to get off this ride? Because so many of us don't have that precious human rebirth just based on where they're born. They're just trying to get their basic needs met, and they're not on any path. They're just trying to stay
Yeah,
alive
survive, right.
and survive. So they don't have the luxury that we do to contemplate and to explore and to analyze these questions. And so I think the story is, to get a precious human rebirth is similar to a blind sea turtle coming up to the surface and aligning with a floating yolk in the ocean, a golden yolk in the ocean, and having their head come up to the center. Those are pretty small odds. So the considering that we're all here, we beat those odds. That all happened to us. You know, we beat the odds.
Well,
So we got that
You
precious
being in a
human
worse
rebirth.
position than you are here now. So
Correct.
yes, we're not elevated with all the suffering, but I think we have at least a little bit control of
That's why-
some suffering
Right.
from where we would have been without this.
Correct, correct,
And we've all agreed to that, some of the people we talked about.
yeah,
We have minimized the suffering to our ability till today.
there's still more to
Compared
know,
to
but,
where we could not be even here
right.
without this knowledge. So I think that's a.
Being born in
right,
fate.
I just point about fate, or if you would, if we were,
It's the opportunity for this existence, yeah.
if we were to say fate is karma, basically.
Yeah.
And the point is very well made, because it does not become a precious human rebirth. There are many people who have what we have or more,
Right,
but they're still going after, they're
They're
grasping after all of the sensory experiences and pleasures and want
Right.
more and more. And what makes it precious, what makes it the turtle that comes up through the yolk, the golden yolk represents the Dharma itself,
right,
the understanding, these teachings. What makes it precious is that there's something in us that has been drawn due to our previous karma, our previous actions, body, speech, and mind, have brought us to here. And it's such a fortunate circumstance we're in, and the idea is to make the best use of it possible.
Hey, Brian,
To kind of-
Fails,
to
Venerable Ravina
cultivating
is
our future self.
doing a,
And the future stuff
workshop
too,
is
we
in the
already
morning.
talked about all this you're doing.
and she
I don't
always
know.
takes any question. So you can find that and you can ask her, she said, is there any question about anything at all?
So there's one, I had one,
You know, I showed up a few weeks ago.
But look how much,
I had a
look at the
similar
discussion,
question.
right?
yeah,
I had a similar question, and it was, one of these philosophy questions, but. And I'm sorry I interrupted and I was very rude, but I feel compelled to say to you, and everybody to know, I ask, is this true all the time? And why does it matter how many arms Avalokiteshvara has, and it doesn't? It's just a symbol that's you could or could not be, and all this stuff is to be abandoned eventually.
I heard a shh there.
But anyway, I'm sorry that I interrupted Tracy very much.
no, no.
All right. Okay,
Apologize.
so what we're still back to this problem of changing our mistaken view of existence, to a correct view of existence is far easier said than done. So the Buddha, in his infinite wisdom, gave as a first practice for his followers ethics, ethical behavior. This is why we're studying this now. Why we're studying karma, actions, their effects. What are the effects of those actions? How do we go about? What are the practices? The Vajrasattva practices, the seven limb practice. What are the practices that we can do to sort of shift the kind of unhelpful karma we may still have within us, the imprints for unhealthy behavior, unwholesome behavior that's not going to help body, speech, and mind. So that was the first practice. And the reason is that if we don't get our afflictive emotions in order, they're just going to run the show, because that's what they do. That's what they've been doing. That's what this grasping is all about. It's like, God, that cake is delicious. I want more of it, and I want a different kind and another one. And you can take that example of cake to anything you're attracted to. The big one they say is sex. The big one they talk about, and it's sex that actually brings us back into cyclic existence. It's that draw.
You can also be attached to
But
wanting to know.
but there's many things to be attached to, but it's that if you think of sexual attraction, sexual grasping, you get a sense of whoa, this is what the ego has been, this is the type of thing we're grasping at. The next closest thing is eating.
I thought
I-
they said, okay.
eating, you know?
we-
But there's all kinds of things, different people have different things they're attached to. But I just bring those up because the monks themselves have mentioned that. So what he said, Buddha said we have to do is if we don't get our afflictive emotions in some kind of, under some kind of control, there is absolutely no way we're going to ever comprehend what the actual nature of existence is, because our minds will be too damn disturbed to do it. We won't have the motivation to do it, to go there, to delve into what the profound view of reality is. We won't have the ability to concentrate to do it. We won't have the enthusiasm to do it, because we'll be so caught up in our emotions and the things that are distracting us, that we have to get, that's the first step. This is why Nagarjuna put these practices towards the very beginning of Precious Garland. Before he goes into, like I said, the next section, he delves into great depth about emptiness and the nature of existence. But without doing these practices that sort of help us to create different imprints on our continuum, positive, beneficial imprints, and remove these destructive ones. This is why the 10 negative actions, 10 positive actions, the Vajrasattva practice, we habituate ourselves to that. I really encourage you to use the audio, because I've been using it and I'm finding, oh my goodness, this is working better than anything ever did for me. Just to have it there and go through it. So that's the first practice, and that's the reason why. Because if we don't get our afflictive emotions under some kind of control, we won't actually be able to find out what the problem is. We won't have the solution to suffering.
I'm gonna add something about doing those practices. Doing these formula practices in and of themselves, this is my opinion. Don't make any change, but it's the analysis you're doing associated with the practice, sort of does this really work? Why would this work? Questions. That's what, and as you wonder, why am I saying this syllable and that? It's in the process of asking and the sincere desire to understand the most accurate. That's where the transformation happens. It's not mouthing the syllables, and it's thinking and the analysis that goes along with it.
It's not a magical formula at all. We shouldn't think of it that way.
And so
It's a psychological process we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of what comes with that is you will find your own nuance, you will make your
Yes.
own shifts in
That's
the
right.
practice as you go.
Absolutely, you will. It will become your own practice. After 3 or whatever weeks, you can be off of the audio and you're doing your own thing. But you've been, basically we've been told, here are the basic things you follow. This is the idea, and so you sort of stick with that. You don't go way off the deep end on some completely different practice, but you make that practice your own version of it, the thing that works for you.
Because it's through your analysis of,
Yeah.
that's what happened.
Basically, the analysis comes down to something like this, and Venerable Robina has said this a lot. We are nothing but a bunch of habits. If you look at us, if you look at yourself, your daily life, moment to moment, from the time you get up, and you follow the habitual tendencies that you have, what is the first thing you do? Is it going to be, I need to look at this and see what the news is?
Who am I supposed to hate today?
I need to look at Facebook and see, is that, do we really want to be doing that? Where is that going to lead? It leads down this circuitous path of just a labyrinth of getting caught up in everybody else's business and your business and what's going on, blah, 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 blah. If we don't do something to stop these habits, all we're going to do is deepen them. The grooves are going to get deeper and deeper and more ingrained and more habitual and stronger. The idea is to it's not to kill the ego, it's not to destroy the habits, it's to transform them. To transform them, bring them into the Dharma practice. We're not here to destroy the ego. We're not here to destroy anything. But make it part of the Dharma practice and transform your thinking through that way. Transform how you view it, how you think about it. What's the purpose? How can this be beneficial? I mean, this is what I do. This is what I try to do. And so you can take any kind of problems that you have and transform it into, how do I bring this problem into a Dharmic point of view? And how do I transform this in a way that actually is going to benefit not only myself, but everybody else around me? And this is the process. And that's why the practices are so helpful, because they help you to do this. They put different ideas in your consciousness, your mind, and they begin to take. The more you do them, the more they become part of who you are, and you begin to view things in a different way. And this is why the Buddha gave these practices. We have to start changing our habits, our habits that are a problem. Good habits are fine. I mean, really, really beneficial habits, helping others, not harming. Those are really good habits to have. I think it's like, I think Kavita mentioned, the consciousness is basically, it's a neutral thing. It's a neutral thing. We can either have our consciousness filled with habits that are going to be destructive, not only to ourselves, but to others, or we can say, no, let's transform that and make it all be beneficial. What do we want? Do we want happiness or do we want suffering? That's what it comes down to. And none of us that I can tell in our own way want to suffer. People's idea of happiness, that can be different for them. But I don't think anybody really wants to suffer. So this is the whole point of the Buddhist teaching. There's no other point. There is no other point. It's to be happy and to experience a system of interdependence that is happy and wholesome. And this is what we're after. And how much do we want to do that? It depends on how attached we are to some of these habits that perhaps are, we need to seriously look at some of our habits and see if can we transform them in a way that it becomes beneficial, or do we just need to let them go? It's not basically destroy it, just let go of it if it's not helpful. So that's the thing to think about. And that's why we're talking about karma. Let's see where we are now. Whoa! Okay, we'll go through this quickly, because these are the last. So I really won't go through a review. And let's go, I mean, basically, if you recall, we had three components to a complete karmic action, is that you have to have a motivation and intention to take the action, whether it's positive or negative. You have to engage in that action, and then you have to have a feeling that you were glad you did it, that you meant to do that, you were happy to do it, it's what I wanted to do. So whether it's positive or a negative action, a complete action must have those three components. If one of those is missing, say for instance you have the motivation and intention, you do it, but then you go, I wish I didn't do that. It is not a complete action. It's not a complete karmic action, and the effect of it will not be as potent. So then there's the other thing I want to talk about. There are results of our actions. So what we have is, the first thing is the ripening result, and that is the kind of rebirth we have. Now, for all of us, we had a really, really good ripening result, a ripening result. We had what is called a precious human rebirth. We were born having within us the desire to know what's going on. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. We were born into families that pushed us in that direction for whatever reason, that we were pushing away from them, or they gave us experiences that made us curious. We grew up in a way where we went, this seems right to me. So that's the kind of rebirth we have. That's the ripening result. The next is the results similar to the cause. And what that is we engage in behaviors and actions that are similar to what we were doing before. So if we did a lot of killing, for instance, and we were happy that we did it, we would be born as a hunter who loved to kill, thought it was a good, really good thing, a wholesome thing, and we make all kinds of justifications that makes total sense to us for killing. And we would think that was a good thing. If we didn't do that, if we were always wanting to, protect beings and save them, we would have those habits come in with us. And then the last one is the environmental result, the kind of place we're born into. Where was the environment? What was our family like? What was the family structure? Did it help us? Did it harm us? What was the environment? Were we born into a relatively good income where we could get a good education and make our way up in the world, or we were born into slums where it was very, very difficult?
Different from the kind of rebirth.
The kind of rebirth is like, were you born a human? Were you born an animal? Were you born like that?
Okay.
The type of rebirth, the actual aggregates that you have, yeah. So that's the type of rebirth, the kind of actions and habits that you have, behavior and actions, and the environment. That's basically the real thing I wanted to cover. So now we go into what's called propelling karma. This takes place where we left off. Propelling karma is often, Venerable Rabina always calls it throwing karma. It's the karma that propels you into your next birth, the propelling karma that you have at the moment of your death. Where your state of mind is at the moment of your death, that is going to be the karma that propels you into whatever your next rebirth is. So that's why the death experience, the state of mind that we can get ourselves into when if we know death is coming, is extremely important. And if we can help somebody who is dying to have a very calm, peaceful state of mind and feel good about the life they had, that is very helpful for them. It helps them with the karma for the next rebirth. All propelling karma, all throwing karma, whether it's virtuous or non-virtuous, is polluted because it's created under the influence of self-grasping ignorance. So what we're talking about is in samsara, we have this birth, aging, sickness, death, we're dying, we are grasping onto existence, this inherent existence of me and mine. So all of it is contaminated by that. The whole samsara experience is contaminated by this I and me and mine. And we can't, that's okay. That's just where we're at right now. We can work on that. But they say it's contaminated anyway. So our propelling karma is always going to be contaminated by that. It does not mean, however, that we're going to have a horrible rebirth because we're grasping at, I and mine. Virtuous propelling karma is not affected by the ignorance of karma and its effects. So what they're saying, all propelling karma, virtuous and non-virtuous, is polluted because it's created under the influence of self-grasping ignorance. However, virtuous propelling karma is not affected by the ignorance of karma and its effects. In other words, if you have virtuous propelling karma, you have an idea somewhere in you that what you do matters. The kind of action you take is going to bring a certain kind of result. So you have a sense of karma, whether you call it karma or not. You have a sense of what goes around comes around, and I want to be helpful. I want to be a good person. I do not want to do a lot of harm. So if we already have that thought in our heads, then our propelling karma is going to be better than it would if we just didn't think it mattered what we did. It doesn't. It's just a crapshoot, really. And why not just grab for whatever you can get? And I know, there are people who think that way. Because I deserve it because I'm me, that whole me and my thing. Now, then there's another thing called unalterable propelling karma. And it means that this propelling karma cannot change. And what it leads to is rebirth in what they call the form and formless realms. And it is a type of virtuous karma. And we haven't talked much about the form and formless realms. There are three main realms in samsara. There's the desire realm that has all of the things we're familiar with: hell realm, hungry ghosts, animals, humans, gods, demigods. That's the samsara, that's the desire realm. Then there is the formless realm, and then there's the form realm, and then the formless realm. And
Do
the,
they have zip codes?
yeah, well, yeah, there are zip codes for, at least in the desire realm,
Yeah, anyway,
at least in the desire realm, there are zip codes.
there are no shared concepts.
The form and formless realms are states of concentration. They're states of meditative concentration. In the form realm, there's a very, very subtle, what you may call an energetic form that you have. But once you have reached that, you're in this state of concentration for the whole expanse of that entire lifetime, whatever it is. It doesn't change. It doesn't, you don't get out of that state of concentration. Now, the problem with the form and the formless realm is that there is no idea of the nature of existence being empty of inherent existence. There's nothing like that. There's no idea of benefiting all other sentient beings. It's just, it's kind of like, stop samsara, I want to get off, you know, but it's really basically focused on the self. And so the problem they say with that is there's a lot of virtuous karma that gets you to have one of those rebirths, but you do nothing with it the whole time. You just stay in that concentrated state, which feels good, until that virtuous karma is burned off, because you're going to use it up. You know, you're not creating any more karma. So there you still have latent seeds of negative karma that you haven't dealt with. They haven't done any practices like we're talking about with the Buddhist practice. So once that virtuous karma burns off, whether you're in the formless realm or the form realm, and you're in one of these states of concentration, you're automatically thrown back into a lower state, some kind of lower state, and you're still in the samsaric situation. So that's the form and formula. So now, Nagarjuna is saying, no, we're gonna discuss it. Okay. Now it goes into how to practice. And of course, I should mention, they always say the best rebirth you could have is the one we have like right now. So we have a good brain, we can think, we can be logical, we can study the Dharma, we can practice. And so and we have enough suffering going on that it's the motivation for us to practice. If you're in a God realm, that's great. You got everything you want. You got chocolate cake every day and every kind of body you want. And it's more and more and more and more and more. And so you just don't even bother. It's like being on vacation all the time. When we were on vacation, it was very, very difficult to practice. There was so much going on, so many people to talk to, so many things to do. It was very, very difficult to practice, and we basically didn't, and we had to get back into it when we got back. So that's kind of like what the God realm was like. It's so distracting and wonderful. Or if you're in the demigod realm, all you're concentrated on is how jealous you are of the gods in the God realm, and you want to do everything to get back at them. You want to get what they have, and so they're always fighting. So you're just either jealous or you're like, wow, this is great. Peel me a grape, you know? So now Nagarjuna goes into how to practice daily, okay? And he's basically saying, desist from all, this is stanza 22, desist from all non-virtues, always engage in virtues with body, speech, and mind. These are called the three forms of practice. So you're trying to engage in virtues with your body, speech, and mind, which is why the seven limb practice, the imprinting positive karmic imprints of body, speech, and mind, and burning the negative imprints of body, speech, and mind is such a psychologically potent practice. Then Khyentse Rinpoche also says, reflect every day on lower rebirths and the pain experienced in them, as well as the suffering experienced by humans and the gods and demigods of the desire realm. It's important to understand that all this misery arises for ourselves and others due to the three poisons of ignorance, anger, and attachment, and the habitual non-virtuous actions of body, speech, and mind that are motivated by ignorance, attachment, and aversion or anger. Then think about rebirth in the upper realms and the happiness experienced by beings there, as well as whatever happiness beings in the lower realms experience. All the happiness and joy that any of us experience is due to non-attachment, non-anger, non-confusion, and the habitual actions that are motivated by those virtuous states of mind. Okay, so he's saying non-attachment, non-anger, non-ignorance are not merely the absence of desire, hatred, and ignorance. Rather, they relate to their object in the opposite way. Non-desire is an open, balanced attitude that doesn't crave or cling to the object or person. There can be enjoyment. I mean, I think we might have all had this experience. We can enjoy something without clinging to it and grasping it. We can experience the pleasure of something and go, that's wonderful, but not go, I have to have it. I have to make it mine. I have to own it. I have to have more of it. That's grasping. That's the grasping we're talking about. And you name it. We can grasp after anything, anything you want.
It's understanding impermanence, you know, you can enjoy something
Right.
when it's there, and it's gonna
Right.
pass.
That idea of permanence goes along with
Yeah.
the ego self-grasping.
Yeah.
I mean, basically what we've got going on with the ego, the I and me, we think of it as this thing that is permanent. The I and me, it's a permanent thing. We think that it's unitary. It's just it's me, one. There's only one me, only one I. I'm unitary. We think it's permanent, unitary, independent. That the I and me somehow exists, is independent, it's self-sufficient, and it substantially exists on its own without depending on anything else. And that is so not true. But that's how we think about it, you know.
Well, that's why so many, when they think of it that way, are terrified of death.
Well, yes, this is
Because,
why
oh my God, it's the end of me. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
it's all
Like,
over.
If you understand that it's not,
Yeah.
your consciousness continues.
Right.
continues.
So what we want to do is we want to we don't want to grasp at being permanent. We want to sort of embrace impermanence. We don't want to grasp at being independently self-existence. We want to go, yeah, I am a dependent arising in every way possible. I mean, all the people in my life, my parents, my family, the farmers who provide the food, everything, my spiritual teachers, none of this, I wouldn't have any of it without depending on others and other things. Totally the opposite of independent self-existent. So, and then you go to this substantially self-existent, that's just dumb, really, if you actually think about it.
Right.
And actually, the I and the me don't exist that way at all. The I and the me do exist, but they don't exist in the way that I just described. Independent, self-existent, substantially existent, permanent, you know, all of that. It doesn't exist that way. They exist as a kind of a label that we put onto our ever-changing aggregates and consciousness that is constantly moving. And it's sort of like a, you know, it's like this. We this is called the object of designation. If you want to say the body and the aggregates, they're an object of designation for the I and me. This is an object of designation which we then designate as book. We give it the label book, we give it the label Dharma book, we give it, you know, all these little figures inside here, they have meaning. We give them, they all are labels that mean something to us. But in and of itself, it's nothing. It's just the object of designation, and we're giving it all the meaning that it has. So when you get back to the self, the I and the me, we are the ones who are giving the I and the me all the meaning that it has. And it's up to us to give it a meaning that is going to put us in a positive momentum and bring about happiness, not only for ourselves, but for others. That's the job. We need to manage ourselves. We need to
Right.
manage our consciousness in a way that's going to be helpful and beneficial. So let's see if I can wrap this up. Um, all right, through these practices, the result of the practices. This is stanza 23. Through these practices, one is freed from becoming a hell being, hungry ghost animal, reborn as a human or a god. One gains extensive happiness, fortune, and dominion. So basically, you're saying through these practices, he's saying we can get ourselves out of this cycle of samsaric existence, which is always comes back to grasping attachment and suffering, birth, aging, sickness, death, and then you rinse and repeat. Basically, is what samsara is. And we have to stop, we have to break the cycle. And we can break that cycle and begin a different cycle. Get back to a present moment cycle that is beneficial and helpful. The stanza 24, I had to look this up. I had to do so much research on this stanza. I didn't know what he was talking about. Stanza 24. Through the concentrations, immeasurables, and formlessnesses, one experiences the bliss of Brahma and so forth. Thus, in brief, are the practices for high status and their fruits. When he's saying high status, he's talking about fortunate rebirths in samsara and what are the fruits of that. So this goes back to the three realms, and we're now talking about the form and formless realm here in this stanza. It's what is Jeffrey Hopkins. I looked at Jeffrey Hopkins, and he said that this stanza is referring to the four concentrations. They're called dhyanas. The four concentrations of the form realm. And what they call them is the first, second, third, and fourth dhyana. That's their names. Okay. So enough on that. Then then he's talking about the four immeasurables: love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. You have to have some of that in order to get to these higher states. And then he's talking about the four formless absorptions of the formless realm. So in the formless realm, there's no body at all. It's just a formless absorption here are the four ones they're thinking about until their positive karma runs out. They think about infinite space. They concentrate on infinite consciousness, infinite nothingness, and they concentrate on the peak of cyclic existence, which is where they think they're at. And the highest level of the formless realm is considered to be the peak of cyclic existence. So they're just concentrating, saying, I'm at the peak of cyclic existence. I'm at the peak of cyclic existence. Yay, wow. I don't know. But and like I said, what all the monks say is their karma that burns out, and then they just, they still have imprints of unhelpful karma, and it throws them back into the cycle again. So let me see. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, here's the last bit. Good. There are two kinds of desire that we can have. One is a positive aspiration, and the other is self-centered attachment, which is an afflictive emotion. So desire is not bad. It's just how are we using it? The altruistic desire to attain liberation and enlightenment does not disturb or agitate the mind. Instead, it makes the mind clear and peaceful. The desire to take rebirth in the upper realms, such as human on up, I guess you could say. The desire to take rebirth in the upper realms is considered a dharma motivation, although higher rebirths themselves are ultimately to be abandoned because we take them under the influence of ignorance and polluted karma. So, the reason we'll keep taking a rebirth in samsara is because we have not yet had a direct experience, non-conceptual experience of what existence actually is. And we have not perfected, we've not understand perfectly how karma works, and we've not perfected our love, compassion, and wisdom. when that's all perfected, we will not be compulsively reborn into cyclic existence. We may choose, and probably will choose, to come back in, but it's not going to, we're not going to be suffering because of it. The whole purpose will be to help, and to have that, if you're enlightened, then you can read somebody perfectly clearly. You can read their karma, you can know exactly, if I say this or do this, or behave in this way, this is gonna trigger them, and that's gonna put them on a pathway that's gonna be really beneficial for them, whatever it may be. And it doesn't mean you're gonna appear as a Buddha, you could appear as anything. And it doesn't mean you're only gonna be dealing with Buddhists, you can be dealing with any sentient being. Yeah, I mean, we should let go of the idea of Buddhism is the right way. It is a way, and it's a way that is working for us. But we should not condemn any other system, because they're within those systems, flawed as they may be, people can actually attain incredible heights of wisdom and purification. And I mean, look at some of the quote saints of various religions, and they've had these mystical experience. Well, what got them there, you know? It's their own karma, it's their own mind. So we should not think that it has to have the shape or appearance of Buddhism. You know, that when we're a Buddha, it doesn't mean that we have to look like all of this. You know, it's what we're talking about is having an enlightened mind, you know. And we appear in whatever form is going to be the most beneficial. It's going to trigger in the best way to help others. Okay. The desire to have a higher rebirth so that we can use it to attain the highest good for all beings is virtuous, even though it is motivated by ignorance and may be tinged with self-centeredness. You know, like, well, yeah, I really want another human rebirth because I don't want to have, you know, I don't want to go in hell realm or, you know, and so there's some self-centeredness there. But the whole purpose, when you really think about it, the purpose is, you know, you want to continue on this
So it
path.
goes back to intention and motivation.
Yeah, it goes back. Yeah, it really does. So the immediate motivation at the time of actually doing a virtuous action, when we're actually doing a virtuous action, the immediate motivation is not attachment or self-centeredness. When we practice generosity, ethical discipline, and patience properly, our motivation is virtuous. Non-attachment is present when we are truly generous, non-harmfulness when we are truly ethical, and non-anger when we are truly patient. Yeah. And that's, you know, it's a lot to get to what we call truly patience. Most of the time it's like, you know, you're gritting your teeth. I just will not say anything. And that's the first step. I mean, you know, I've said this many times. Rabina's, one of her famous lines is, when you're out among others, keep your lips zipped and your hands to yourself. Because if we haven't got our afflictive emotions under control, we're going to be triggered and we're going to say something we may regret. So it's best to just zip it until we zip until we have a better, we've done more cleansing, more purification, until we have a clearer idea of how all of these afflictive emotions are working and how we can sort of remove them and create better imprints. And then we can open our mouths.
I think she said with regards to her anger, you know, she's like, there's no way I could not be angry during the day. So I told myself, okay, I am not gonna be angry from midnight to 5 in the morning
While she's asleep.
while she's asleep.
Kind of unconscious.
And it's a start, but then it's a start because she made the
Yeah.
intention.
Yes.
It was a start.
And that's super important, just
Yeah.
to have that intention,
Wake up to 6 a.m. now.
Yeah, right.
just to have that intention.
Exactly. Progress.
It's like getting your foot in the door, the
Right.
intention, you know, you're just getting the foot in the door. You go, I really can't do this, but I at least wish I could, you know?
Right.
And that's something, then your mind starts working.
And because you
When
set
you
that intention.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
and that's very important.
maybe your dreams, you're not angry and yelling at people.
Right. 12:30, we finished and we had a great conversation too, so
Yeah.
yay.
So the two types of desire are altruistic, and then what's the second?
Self-centered.
Self-centered,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Just wanted to make sure I got that right.
And most, up until recently, for a lot of us, our desire really has been kind of self-centered.
Yeah.
And we can see that when we look at it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just part of the package. You know, it's just what it is. But the thing is, we can actually turn it around. We can change it. It's not permanently that way. And it's surprising how when you look at the logic of what the Buddhist is saying, the wisdom, the compassion, you combine the two, like I said, then you see a complete picture of how things can actually be. You go, well, this makes a lot of sense. Why would I be self-centered when actually everything is a dependent arising? Why wouldn't I want what's better for the whole thing? Because that's going to make my part better, and it's going to make everybody else's better. It's logical, and you can really take it on board, you know. And it's all you have to do is just get your foot in that door, just a little crack, and you can do it. All right. Closing prayers.
You probably should edit that out of the video, my comment about you telling me up to 6 a.m. Just in case.
Okay, we'll see, but
I'm only kidding.
yeah. I mean, you know, she probably think it was pretty
It's a
funny.
joke.
All right, la, 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 la. Let's see. What little things here. Okay, let's do the dedication prayers. Let's do them in English. Let's go down to the bottom of the second page. We'll go through these. You know, it's just 12 more. We'll just go through them. It starts with the precious Bodhi mind.
Yes.
May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the view of emptiness, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And then the final dedication on the bottom of page 3. In all my lives, may I not be separated from true lamas, and so enjoy the splendor of Dharma. Fully perfecting the virtues of levels and paths, may I speedily attain the state of Vajradhara. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Oh
Great.
gosh, Christopher, thank you.
That was a really good conversation that we had at the beginning. Thank you, Brian. Thank you,
Thank you
Ajay.
both.
Thank you, Kavita. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, the questions are great. Mhm.
Thank you, Christopher.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, guys. You guys were quiet today. You Zoom compadres.
Thank
I
you.
guess 'cause we were so noisy.
Right, safe travels, Arthur.
Yeah. Good seeing you all. I'm gonna
Bye.
Bye.
end the recording anyway, but you know, if you want to stay and chat, you can do that.